What is the secret of suffering? That is my question that I am going to propose to you today. And I'll give you a hint. It is not the reaction, not the natural first reaction that we would have to experiencing hardships in our life, right? And today I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we can use suffering to, instead of becoming a victim, which leaves you trapped, destined for a life of suffering, pretty miserable company to be around for everyone else, and, just doesn't progress you as a human being. So you can be a victim or you can be a victor, where you use what happened to you as a springboard in your life, where you look at your life head on, not liking everything you see, but still progressing forward. Be it by baby steps, be it however you do it, right? And I think this is something our society just does not talk about enough, is how freaking good for humans suffering is, if we let it be good for us. And, if I'm a wooden block, I don't like the way the sandpaper feels on my block, It doesn't feel good. It's horrible. It is ruining everything. It's shaving pieces of myself away that I'm used to and comfortable in. But underneath there, what gets sanded away, reveals something beautiful and something way better and something that's actually amazing and that other people can look at and say, wow, like that is a piece of art. That is just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And, that's what suffering is. Suffering is that sandpaper, the nitty-gritty, crappy, discouraging, awful feelings, and all that stuff. That's what suffering is. And nobody likes it, nobody wants it, and that's what we're here to delve into. So, I wanted to talk about 5 ways suffering actually is incredible for humans, and how it works to strengthen us if we will let it. So I'm going to dive right in. Thank you for tuning in to my little TED Talk here. Number 1, suffering teaches us humility. And I think anybody who's ever suffered can tell you that. They were knocked down a peg or two when the suffering came around. And this is something I can myself attest to a lot, how various sufferings in my life have really made me realize I'm not that great. I don't think anything can really humble you quite like falling on your butt and getting knocked down into the mud. It can be a very sobering experience, which is actually good for you, because pride is really, really toxic and horrible for us as humans. And every single time I've felt prideful in my life, I feel like the Lord comes around and knocks me down a peg or two, and I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, I'm really not anything great or special. So that would be number 1, teaching us humility. Number 2, it draws us closer to God. If you've ever suffered, which we all have, of course, then for a fact, if you let it, again, this is all stipulated on whether or not you allow these good things to manifest. But suffering can really draw us closer to God. I know when my dog died, that was one of the hardest times, and I really didn't have anyone around me who understood or was physically there to comfort me. well, I had people around that maybe understood, but physically there was no one else there to comfort me. And I turned to Jesus. I got in the Word, I was praying, and it was amazing and beautiful and so comforting. And I feel like it really did strengthen my relationship with God. Even though, of course, it stemmed from something negative and bad, you know, I at least got comfort and a lot of care from Jesus at that time. So I would say definitely suffering is an opportunity to turn to God and allow Him to console us. Allow Him to make our heart settled and just comfort and care for us and take care of us. And He loves to do that. So he's an amazing comforter. Number 3, suffering makes us appreciate things that we otherwise would take for granted. And I can attest to this 100% because it totally does. You know, when we suffer discomfort even, or different circumstances in life, you know, I grew up really poor in a trailer park. And I know, like, you know, people have much worse situations, and it makes me so incredibly grateful that I live in a house now. You know, I have a garage, I have a recording studio. Like, I am so grateful. I'm grateful that there's food on the table, that we don't have to scrounge. I'm grateful that I have money to buy the things that I need. I'm grateful because, and this ties into the next point, that suffering, number 4, puts things into perspective for us. And it does. It puts things into perspective because you're able to look back maybe on a time, you know, when something happened to you that was really difficult, and not only did you overcome that, and it's like you didn't probably think you could make it through whatever happened to you. You know, it's just like when I left Jehovah's Witnesses and everyone in my family told me that, my parents said I'm no longer their daughter. And, you know, everyone just said, oh, you're an apostate, I'm never speaking to you again. You know, but I overcame that. I thought at the time that I would never be able to go on living, that I didn't know how I was going to make it through. And I did, you know, and that really puts things into perspective as well with relationships for me, because when I have relationships with people, I value them immensely, and I really don't take that stuff for granted. And, you know, I think suffering puts so much in perspective for us, how blessed and lucky we are on so many different things. And even, like, I look at footage from different areas of the world where things are, it's like buildings are just blown apart, or there's earthquakes, and it's like people's children are trapped in the rubble, and they're like listening to the screams of their family. That puts things in perspective, you know? If you let it, and like if you think about it and you're like, wow, I'm so blessed. Like, I'm so incredibly blessed to have the things that I have in my life. And, you know, to have a home and a roof over my head and a vehicle and a job and just all of that different thing. Even I feel like witnessing other humans suffering, we can let that be a huge lesson to us if we allow it to be. And fortunately, that's something I always think about, you know, just actually how grateful I am for the things that I do have, even though my life's not perfect. You know, it's not perfect. It's not how I would have written my life, but I know that the story that God writes for each of our lives is way better than what we can actually write for ourselves if we're following His guidelines and if we're doing what He wants us to do. And so, you know, my last point that I want to make about suffering is that it brings us surrender. If we allow suffering to do this, you know, we can actually just surrender, right? And feel the pain, feel the sadness, and understand that we don't have to manipulate things or change anything. We don't have to do anything. You can sit with those feelings. You can process them. You can surrender and just grieve, cry out to God if you need to, pour everything into Him. And even like my family, you know, all the time, when I worry about them, you know, sometimes I'm awake in the middle of the night and I can't sleep because I want to know that they're okay. And, you know, in those moments, it's an opportunity for me to mentally gather up all those people that I love and just put them in the arms of Jesus and ask, Lord, I surrender these people to you. Please take care of them, because I know that my worries and my anxieties about all of these situations, all of the past, oh, I did this, I'm so terrible, I did this, I said this, I wish it would have been this way, this person did this to me. Listen, just surrender all of that stuff. Mentally gather it all up, put it in a giant Santa Claus bag, throw it over your shoulder, and lay it down at His feet, because it feels good to surrender that stuff. And really, it's not anything you have to carry. You can't make someone else's life be a certain way, just like other people can't make your life be a certain way. And that's what I've really learned about suffering, you know, with all of the circumstances that I've gone through as a Christian. I really am grateful for a lot of the different experiences that I've had, all of the experiences that I've had, to be honest with you, because I realize that even though all of it is hard and a lot of it, it's like I'm still going through things, but I still maintain a grateful attitude, because I know that the Lord is working something in my life that I just can't see, and that there is a reason, there is hope, there is purpose. And if nothing else, you know, when you go through something really traumatic and really heartbreaking, if you just use it as a lesson and think about what actually happened, instead of like pushing it down and not ever thinking about it and running away from it or drowning it out in substances or whatever, like actually consider the different aspects, like consider how the other person or people felt and acted, and then consider your own actions. What could you have done better? You know, pick it apart in a logical way, not in a worrying about it way or, you know, trying to change it way. No, just look at the situation. What could I have done better? What could the other person have done better? And what you'll realize in doing that is that you start learning these really important lessons, and you start recognizing patterns in your own life where you haven't done that. Like, all these lessons came to you, and if you look at your life, I guarantee you there's a pattern of those sufferings that you've gone through. And the really interesting thing is that in life, you're gonna keep like encountering the same situations with different people until you get the lesson through your head on what is trying to come through. And, you know, it's only when we surrender that we really allow those lessons to come through. And it's hard. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not discounting or brushing off suffering as if it's no biggie or something. You know, I don't like suffering. I want to be happy just like every single other person. But, you know, I think that is something that we need to take stock in and remember, is that God allows us to suffer because it's good for us. You ever know, like, one of those people who are just born with, like, a silver spoon in their mouth, and they just get everything they want and they're spoiled and they never suffered a day in their life. I mean, it doesn't make for a good human. Honestly, it doesn't make for a good human, because suffering results in a development of your character. It exposes your weaknesses, and it can really actually do wonders for you as a person. But you have to actually accept that that's the case and use the lessons that are being taught to you as actual lessons, instead of, like I said, becoming a victim. From what I've seen, when you resolve yourself to being a victor instead of a victim, that's when you really, really shine in life. And, you know, it's, instead of looking back and being like, oh my God, poor me, like this happened to me, and like, it's just so, you know, and I mean, I'm not talking about that you have to be like super stoic and strong. Like, obviously we have to grieve, we have to cry, but to still stand up after that and be like, okay, I'm good, like I'm moving forward, like I'm gonna keep going. That's so important, and something that I don't know, sorry, I'm getting texted. Yeah, that's so important. And I think a lot of the time the Lord allows suffering because He wants to build our character. He wants us to... Every single time my phone starts overheating. Yeah, He wants to build our character, and this is how it's done, unfortunately. Like I said, the block of wood probably does not like the sandpaper, and it doesn't feel good, and nobody wants that, but sometimes it is what it is, and it's like, you need the sandpaper because it actually helps you a lot. So that is about all that I have to say. I feel like my brain is... I got a really bad headache, so usually I feel like I'm more eloquently spoken, but I have like a really bad headache. My jaw is like kind of dislocating today, and it's really driving me crazy. But yes, so 5 ways suffering strengthens us. We got teaches us humility, draws us closer to God, makes us appreciate things we otherwise would take for granted, puts things into perspective, and brings us surrender. So if you're suffering and you clicked on this video, just know, first of all, you're not alone, and that there's lots of people suffering right alongside of you. 100% I guarantee you. And to just allow yourself to grieve, to feel all those feelings, but don't overlook the lessons, and resolve yourself to becoming a victor and not a victim, okay? I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for clicking on the video and watching. I pray that everyone would have an awesome day. Stay fasted up, blessed up, and prayed up every single day, all day. I love you guys so much. Talk to you next time. Peace.